Hey, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Rebekah Tweed. I'm the Executive Director at All Tech is Human. If you are new to All Tech is Human, welcome. We're a nonprofit. We're based in New York, and we bring together a global community of thousands of people. Together, we are building the world's largest multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary network in responsible technology. So we emphasize leveraging the collective intelligence so that we can most effectively tackle thorny tech and society issues in order to co-create a tech future that's aligned with the public interest. Secondly, we emphasize diversifying tech. We want to include more backgrounds, disciplines, and lived experiences so that we're best positioned to meet the challenges that we face as a society. And thirdly, we emphasize greatly increasing the pace of tech consideration to meet the challenges of the moment because tech is not slowing down. We need to move at the speed of tech. Our goal is to build and strengthen the responsible tech ecosystem, and we do this through multi-stakeholder collaboration and community building, through multidisciplinary education and resource development, and through career development efforts to establish a diverse, responsible tech talent pipeline. So we have a lot of activities for you to get involved in. Check out alltechishuman.org for details on our mentorship program, university network, talent matchmaking service, job board, working groups, etc. So today we are having a discussion, and this is part of our weekly live stream series. In particular, this is our second installment of This Month in Responsible AI, where we are keeping tabs on what's happening in AI policy, AI governance, and responsible AI over the past month or so. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Renée Cummings. We can go ahead and bring Renée up on screen. And for those who do not know, Renée is an AI ethicist, criminologist, futurist, data science professor of practice at the University of Virginia, non-resident senior fellow at Brookings Institution, and a senior fellow here at All Tech is Human. So hi, Renée. Thanks for joining.
Hello, Rebekah. Thanks always for having you, and hello to everyone out there in the world, in the virtual world. And I'm looking forward to a very engaging conversation, as always, on responsible AI.
Me too. So we are going to be taking your questions today. So if you're watching live on LinkedIn, this is your chance. Please drop a question into the chat. And we just want to know what you're thinking about and wondering about. So we're going to spend a good amount of time on your questions toward the end. So yeah, we will jump right in right now. So Renée, I would love to start with just talking through a little bit of the headlines recently, what we've seen over the past month or so. There are always wild headlines. Sometimes it feels like it's hard to keep up with all of the AI news, but it seems pretty clear we're amassing this very robust repository of cautionary tales, how to not use generative AI and what not to do. And it seems like the issues don't really change much, right? It's just the manifestation of those issues of like how generative AI is being used in the wild. I think back last month, it was Air Canada having to honor that hallucinated refund policy. And then there was that Chevy dealer whose chatbot sold a car for $1. And then this month we have a whole new batch of companies finding out that, chatbot accuracy is actually a really tough problem to solve. I've been seeing headlines about an AI, tax prep chatbot giving out bad advice. I think it was Washington Post that found that both H&R Block and Intuit TurboTax were giving kind of random, misleading and inaccurate answers to questions. And then closer to home here in New York, Mayor Adams has implemented an AI-powered chatbot that provides New Yorkers with information on how to start and operate a business in the city. But the markup recently, about a week ago, published that it has been giving illegal advice to entrepreneurs, telling businesses to break the law in various ways. And then in a follow-up article yesterday, the markup reported that the chatbot has not yet been taken down. So they just added a disclaimer not to use the responses as legal or professional advice. And I did see that OpenAI and probably other companies as well are experimenting with, adding hyperlinked text to outputs, at least with ChatGPT Plus and Team and Enterprise. So if you're paying for that, you might have access to that kind of mitigation measure. And they're following Perplexity AI's lead there. But Renée, I wanted to ask, when it comes to accuracy with these chatbots and other generative AI outputs, do you think that's enough? Do you think chatbots will ever be accurate enough to consistently provide reliable information when interacting with customers and especially with citizens? Do you think that would work, or do you think this gets too risky for companies and governments to use at this time?
Well, I think chatbots are very good with frequently asked questions. Chatbots are good with very generic information. Let's be honest, bad advice is not only the domain of chatbots. Humans are also known for bad advice. Many times we call these 1-800 numbers from anything from accessing your refund from an airline to dealing with customer service if you want to return some clothes. And we know we've got bad advice from humans as well. But accuracy is critical to responsible AI. And accuracy is about accountability. Accuracy is about transparency. Accuracy is also about auditability. If you're auditing those chatbots, if you're doing your impact assessments, if you are doing your vulnerability audits, and if you are bringing the requisite level of due diligence to the ways in which you're designing and then deploying these chatbots, then your rate of accuracy is going to be much higher. If you're not doing the due diligence and you're not embracing a really sophisticated level of duty of care, that understanding of your responsibility to your customers, to the wider society, then you're going to have chatbots that are misbehaving and going rogue. So it's all about auditability. If you want to get the requisite level of accuracy, you've got to invest in a responsible AI strategy. And I think that really dovetails into the big news of last week, which was the memo coming out of the White House, the Office of the Vice President, that really looks to streamline responsible AI operations across the federal government. And that's something we need to drill into, because that's a big one, because it's really about how do we bring evidence-based approach to doing trust, to doing safety, to doing security, to doing accountability, and really thinking within the realm of responsible AI, and really seeing from a federal level, this building upon the blueprint for the AI Bill of Rights, then building upon the executive order that came out of the White House last year. And now we have this memo that really tries to bring that risk-based approach and that rights-based approach into the federal government. Many questions around how it's going to be executed, the kinds of challenges around implementation and just natural bureaucracy against, the ways in which we work at the federal level, and just the fact that we are bringing a risk-based approach and the federal government asking all agencies using AI to document and share that publicly. Is that going to be a bigger risk for the United States government? Is that level of openness something that we want to see? Does it become a national security threat? I know the Department of Defense is sort of immune from sharing their shopping list of AI secrets. So there's just so much happening in the space. But I think if we think about that memo that speaks to accountability and transparency and really speaks to responsible and trustworthy AI, then we know even chatbots that are going to be used at the federal level also have got to be reined in if they are behaving badly.
Right. I know you bring up so many good points. Thinking about, if there are chatbots being used at the local level that are having issues at the federal level, they certainly need to have a lot more accountability before they can be released. It is interesting to think too about the impact of what VP Harris has released around what the federal government will be doing and what their requirements are, and what kind of impact that has downstream on if the federal government is the largest purchaser of artificial intelligence in the country. that's going to have a big impact, even if it's not something that is applicable to companies and other customers. If the federal government is doing it, that's going to have such a huge impact. So I think that's really important.
Definitely. And it also brings in the question of procuring AI, which is so critical. And we've got to think about those vendors that are creating the AI applications and tools and solutions that are being used, and whether they are adhering to a responsible AI approach. That's also very critical. And of course, questions around proprietary rights and trade secrets, and how these really conflict at time with civil rights and human rights, because what we're seeing at the federal government level, what we've seen from the EU, is that we've got to strike the right balance between a risk management approach and a rights-based approach.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I'm thinking through as well, what we're seeing right now, not only with accuracy, but something that I think is very impactful right now around, the timing and the implications for democracy, and looking at basically AI's impact and generative AI's impact specifically on the information ecosystem, and how deepfakes and synthetic content are impacting our information environment, especially in 2024, when there are so many elections, including in the United States, our own presidential election coming up. So I was just thinking about the different types of possible harms that come from these types of deepfakes. Thinking about voice cloning. It was OpenAI just showcased that their technology only needs 15 seconds of a clip of someone's voice to be able to recreate it. And so many public figures, of course, have just a lot more than that publicly available for people to draw from. And OpenAI was saying they would not release this publicly until they know more about the potential risks for misuse. But we already know that voice deepfakes are problematic. Just even last month, with Joe Biden's voice being deepfaked in the New Hampshire primary for a robocall. And that was traced back to someone connected to the Dean Phillips campaign. And we can already guess what the potential risk for misuse might be in a general election or beyond. And then I've also seen, there's the AI generated images of Donald Trump posing with Black people. And it was Trump supporters that were creating and sharing those on social media. So it doesn't even take the campaign itself to be putting these things out for it to be impacting people, persuading people. And then, seeing that YouTube has now started adding watermarks to AI generated video. So that's great. But there are also situations where watermarks aren't necessarily going to be useful or enough. Thinking about, kind of drawing on what you were talking about earlier, that, it doesn't take AI for us to people give bad advice too. And I think about that in terms of the information ecosystem. It's not like that is great without AI. And thinking about just the Kate Middleton situation recently.
Well, there's really a lot to think about. And it's not only the information ecosystem, it's about our mental health. When we think about the challenges of cloning, of non-consensual photographs and just images that are being shared, this can have an extraordinarily dangerous impact on our mental health. We have seen young women who've been violated by deep fakes. We've seen young women who are in high school who've been violated by deep fakes, and the kind of trauma they have experienced and the post-traumatic stress that they continue to experience because of those deep fakes. So we've always got to think of our mental health. We've always got to think of our wellness. And large language models, as great as they can be, when it comes to the ways in which we can access information and curate content and really make ourselves look smarter and more exciting, right? That's all the good stuff. But then there are the challenging stuff, the trauma, the violation. And yes, we can apply those watermarks, but we know that Watermarks are good, but we know that fraudsters are even better at fakes, right? So we have got to think always of the balance. So the challenge is with synthetic media in the political realm is that we have got to upskill each other in real time when it comes to AI literacy, when it comes to data literacy, which are critical aspects of media literacy. We know that with AI, we can do some really extraordinary things in the political space when it comes to public engagement, when it comes to voter engagement, when it comes to voter rights, and really being able to access information in real time, and really ensuring that we create that virtual soapbox for many of these politicians to stand on, but always understanding that we can engage them really well, because we can use large language models to generate content of things that they've said that they may be pretending they didn't say, and things that they did that they may be pretending that they didn't do. So we could use the technology really strategically, but we also know that technology can harm in real time. We also know that there are some very dangerous things that require that responsible AI approach, that requires us to bring that sophisticated level of due diligence, and what I always speak about, an ethical vigilance that is so critical to deploying a responsible AI approach. So while we can do these amazing things with sense, with deep fakes as well, for fun, for entertainment, the fact that you can create a video in 15 seconds, that's really brilliant. When you think about people who want to be creative, or who want to do more exciting things with content, when you think about people who are working in marketing and advertising and media and public relations and government relations, there are so many things. When we think about young people and literacy and really engaging each other, those are the great things. But we know to get the great things, we've got to do the other good things, which is the responsible AI approach, which is bringing those levels of accountability, which is ensuring that we erect those guardrails. So responsible AI is so critical for us to really, really harness the benefits of AI.
Completely agree. And I am thinking through when the Kate Middleton situation was happening, and you had the video, the kind of grainy, blurry video that was released, I think through TMZ, was pushing that out, and they had, in the United States at least, they had, kind of internet sleuths doing the unblurring, using an unblurring tool to say like, oh, this actually isn't Kate Middleton, this is someone else. But really what it's doing is it's using generative AI just to fill in what plausibly could be making up that face. It's not actually unblurring the face. And so you have tools like that where something like a watermark wouldn't make any kind of a difference. It's just, these are the tools we're using. And so just understanding what you pointed out with AI literacy, I think is so huge. Just understanding the tools you're using, here's how they work, and here is the impact that might have on our perception. It's so crucial that people really know how AI works and how that's showing up in our daily lives and in the information ecosystem. And I want to go back to what you said around deep faked, basically non-consensual pornographic imagery of especially children, high school girls, and how it's not only malicious actors at a large scale doing this, it's also just classmates doing it to one another, and just what that introduces.
And really not understanding the implications of their behavior, and not understanding the long-term impacts of that behavior. And I think it's requiring a level of cultural sensitivity and empathy when it comes to deploying many of these technologies. It's fun. We agree that it's fun, but it could also be frightening. It could also be very frightening. And I think at all levels, because AI is so pervasive and it is so powerful, we've got to ensure that we make responsible AI something that is intrinsic to who we are and what we would like to believe humanity is.
Right. And using the AI literacy process also, I think, will involve us kind of shifting some of these norms around behavior, like being able to understand the impacts on girls who are experiencing this and boys that are experiencing this. But really, yeah, thinking through what that means for us at a holistic level as a society. And the way legislation is kind of playing in right now, it's so challenging for, at the federal level to pass anything, but the states are taking this on when it comes to, the pervasiveness of having this happen to, people they know, everyday people. And so states are putting some of these like deep fake
But the states
laws
need to
into
put a lot
place.
of speed in what they're doing, because the speed and scale of the technology requires a comparative response. We're taking too long to do the work that we need to do. And the longer we take, the more sophisticated the technology becomes. So we need real-time responses to ensure that we're protecting those rights.
Yes. Yep. We need to move at the speed of tech. So, thinking through a little bit about around policy, you'd mentioned earlier what the vice president had released, and then we also had, of course, the U.S. and the U.K. have just entered into this agreement to share information around AI safety, and there's the U.K. AI Safety Institute and now the U.S. AI Safety Institute, and All Tech is Human announced today we have joined the U.S. AI Safety Institute consortium with 200 or so other AI-related organizations, and the mission is to develop and deploy safe and trustworthy AI. So that is definitely right in line with what we're all about. But I'm wondering your thoughts on kind of the larger policy picture, thinking through AI regulation in the United States in light of the EU AI Act and what that might mean for us. Do you think there's any chance that it will pressure the US to put something into place here? Or
it's a very exciting time. The EU AI Act really is it's a brilliant document. It really sets a high standard. What I love about the EU AI Act is the way that risks are categorized. I also love the fact that it's committed to rights and privacy and protection and really empowering individuals. Absolutely brilliant. The challenges when it was being negotiated and when it was being ironed out, large language models and generative AI were still not part of that discussion. So that's a challenge. It does set very high precedent, and that is good. What I like about the UK's AI safety approach is that it deals with evidence-based trust, which means that you have got to show the evidence that what you are deploying, we can trust. What's also brilliant about the UK's approach, although let me just remove although. What is brilliant about the UK's approach, for me, two things: contestability. It offers us a space to contest when something goes wrong, and it also offers you the kind of redress and compensation that's required. It's heavy in accountability, heavy in transparency, heavy in audibility. It speaks about this evidence-based approach to trust, and it also speaks about measurability. Let's measure the things that we're doing, and it's also committed to the ways in which we communicate to people about what the technology can do, what it cannot do. The US, yes, we have our, blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. We had our executive order. Now we have our federal memo. All of these things, fantastic. None of these things law. So we have got to think, the voluntary approach is good to good behavior. It's a great way to encourage good behavior, which is you put the responsibility on the people to behave. But sometimes the people need something a little more, like the law, right? So I hope this doesn't get us lazy. The EU AI Act, I think if anything, it lets us know that it's a really high standard that we have got to compete with. So let's match it in the way that we are doing our work. The Brussels effect, well, the world has gone Brussels effect crazy. Let's hope that it does kick in. The challenge with the Brussels effect always usually becomes a challenge of small companies that may want to innovate without without having the requisite level of resources required if there are compliance challenges. The other big question with the EU AI Act, whether or not all that legislation is going to stymie innovation. I don't believe so. I always believe if we innovate ethically, then we're innovating brilliantly and we're innovating responsibly. So it's a great time for legislation, whether or not it's enough. That's another big question. It may not be enough, whether or not it is flexible enough, whether or not it is adaptable enough, whether or not it is going to stand up, to the test of time, because AI is a test, and new and emerging technology always speaks to what's emerging. And what's emerging is what we don't know. And that's the challenge.
Right. And are the laws malleable enough to adapt to new, even just the generative AI complicating the picture from what had been put together previously around AI. But it does seem like there are multiple approaches that can be taken, and that might make things challenging, but I think that's what we have right now. We have potentially the Brussels effect. We have states that are taking it into their own hands in certain ways, and some cities in certain cases, not just with AI, but even around other related issues with privacy and other things like that. But then, having the US executive branch, like it does have an impact, like the way the federal government handles their AI, whether it's things they're building or procuring, that's going to have an impact. But I've also heard people speak about how important it is to just look at kind of what the existing laws on the books, and you look at what the FTC and Lena Khan are able to accomplish with just interpreting existing laws through the lens of AI makes a big difference. Yeah,
most definitely, because there are laws there that can work.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the interpretation, and it really comes to bringing a new perspective. What we're seeing, particularly with generative AI, when it comes to intellectual properties, when it comes to the ways in which we are thinking about vicarious infringement, the ways we're thinking about, how creatives are being impacted. Really requires for a stretching of the imagination of the law. And that really comes with the fact whether or not the members of our judiciary in this country, anywhere in the world, are really understanding the implications of AI, or do they really understand how large language models work, or how they do not work? Are they really understanding those long-term implications? So that requisite level of literacy that's required is not only required for us or people engaging with the technology from the societal level, but those high offices also need to be upskilled in real time, because we've got to think about various levels of protections. And if we get those things correct, it means we're getting the technology to a place where we can really always harness the extraordinary power of the technology and reduce the kind of harm that can be done.
Yeah, and you bring up such an interesting point with the judiciary, because you have an area like intellectual property and copyright and all of these things that are being litigated right now. And I've heard, a lot of people talk about with Congress specifically, like, well, they're very geriatric. They don't know technology. How are they supposed to legislate it? And I think that that's true to a point, except you have, there are organizations that are intentionally trying to basically like put technologists in Congress.
You have all those great tech advisors and all the great programs that are there, and all the very brilliant people who we both know who are part of those programs, who are doing the work. What we want to ensure is that they get the space to do the work. What we want to ensure are their voices are being heard, that they are being seen in those roles, and that they are given a position to lead. And that is what is important. Not that you're sending them to all the hearings and they're taking notes and they're just sharing the notes, but we are giving them that opportunity to really engage with Congress, to really engage with our legislators and persons who are leading in those political spaces. And that's what's important, because we know there are some really exceptional programs that are part of the congressional staff program as well.
Exactly. And maybe someone needs to do something similar for the judiciary, because it
Most
seems like
definitely.
that's an
So that's
important
a
place.
space for all tech as human to start to think about. All right.
You're right. Yeah, maybe we will. Well, I do want to turn it to some audience questions. I know we have a couple. So let's see here. If we could pop up one of the questions. Okay, from Daniel Freed from LinkedIn. I worked with Google's Gemini to craft this question that it would like to ask you. I am Gemini, a large language model created by Google AI. While designed for positive purposes, I've been used to rewrite holy books offensively, provide information on poisons, and even explore infrastructure attacks. This experience and the fact that I wrote this very question leads me to wonder, how well is Google living up to its promises of creating ethical AI?
Well, one of the things that I try to stay clear of is really commenting on any product that belongs to any company. And it's a skill that I learned very well working in the media. It's a skill that I learned very well working as a reporter. So that's a brilliant question. What I will say is that we've got to take ethical AI more seriously. And we know that many big tech companies have done the ethics washing, have done the window dressing with ethics. And many times when they want to push forward and rush to market, they disband their entire ethical teams. We don't want to see that sort of window dressing anymore. We don't want to see the ethics looking like a pretty mannequin in the store window, right? What we want to see is really a commitment and an understanding to ethics and really building a responsible AI approach, because there are enough studies that speak about bias and discrimination and the harms of large language models and AI. We have sufficient evidence that this technology, as amazing and transformative as it is extremely harmful. So what we want to see with with all of the companies working in the space, all of the agencies, all of the institutions, is a choreographed commitment to ethical approaches and really a collective, approach that speaks to doing or actioning responsible AI.
Yep. And we do have one more question from a LinkedIn user, and we can pop that one up. How does the question of model accuracy change when features that allow changes to the generated content? For example, Gemini's feature that regenerates a selected part of its responses are added to these conversational AI applications. Is model accuracy a valuable metric in this context?
Again, will not comment on a product, but accuracy is only as good as the measures that you are using to audit. So accuracy and auditability are critical. Before you build these models, you have got to use an approach that really speaks to the kinds of vulnerabilities you're seeing. So if you're looking, or if you're doing your vulnerability audits, if you're looking at the kinds of risks, if you are putting those measures in there to detect and to mitigate those risks, and of course to manage and improve the models, then you're trying to bring a responsible AI approach to the ways in which you're doing the technology. So accuracy really has to go hand in hand with auditability. That's the only thing that I can say. And when we understand how these technologies work, and we understand generative AI and large language models, we understand that, we can't let it sit on the fire. We have to continuously pay attention to what's in the pot.
Yeah, that's great. And just want to say that question was from Blake Chambers. So yeah, you mentioned bias when it comes to generative AI. That's a long-standing issue, predates generative AI. But there was one thing that I saw, like headline-wise, that I did think was really interesting and just wanted to touch on for a moment, and that was around basically around using generative AI in hiring and recruiting, which I think is just fascinating on its face, because we have these automated decision-making tools that are intended to be used for hiring. And we have a hard enough time keeping those from falling into the traps of bias and inaccuracy and arbitrariness. There's a great book on the topic, The Algorithm by Hilke Schellman, and she does a deep dive into these tools that are specifically built for this purpose. But then you have generative AI, you have chatbots that are, for a broad set of purposes, and hiring managers and HR teams are using them to rank resumes and to in the recruiting process, which
to rank
is mind-boggling.
resumes that were designed by ChatGPT, right? Because
Yes,
everyone's doing a
yes.
ChatGPT resume right now. So what are you really ranking? What are you really ranking? What are you really looking for? I think what this technology is doing, yes, we know it's a great tool for HR. Yes, we know it could really streamline the processes and make the work a bit easier. But in the process of making the work easier, we may be dumbing ourselves down. And that's something we need to think about. I think, when you think about HR or professionals, it's about really being able to curate the best talent for the organization. It's really being able to engage with the individuals you're interviewing and really trying to suss out of them the kind of person the organization wants, the kind of talent that people have. When we're using these technologies or these we're deploying these easy video type of assessments, then we're hoping that we pick up on the right voice or the right, on camera posture or the right resume. What we're doing in trying to get a lot of those rights, we're doing a lot of wrong. And we've got to always think about, are we searching for excellence or are we becoming very lazy and with the things that we are doing? So within the hiring realm, yes, you can go through 1,000 resumes in a few seconds, and that's fantastic. But you may miss a lot. You may miss a lot of good things as well. So it's with good measure that we've got to use this tool. And we need to keep that human in the loop. We need to ensure that we bring that human-centered approach to the ways in which we're designing these technologies and the ways in which we're engaging with them. And we need to always bring that due diligence and that understanding. If I'm using this, what are the challenges? What are the risks? What are the things that I can be missing? How do I really use this technology in a way that is effective, a way that is efficient, in a way that brings excellence to the organization? I'm not going to use this technology to exclude and to really replicate old behaviors and to really replicate the kind of biases and discriminatory practices that have long plagued many of the approaches. Let the technology make us better. Let the technology make us do things more creatively. Let the technology bring a new sort of life to the ways in which we're leading in those spaces. Don't let the technology, highlight the things that are really undermining the approaches that you're using.
Very well said. Yeah, the need is there. It's, people their intentions are good. We just have to be responsible with how we do it. And the headline from Bloomberg was, they reported that OpenAI's tools showed bias when used for recruiting. So I do want to close after, I have one question to close with, just kind of open-ended. I just wanted to see, what are you seeing happening in responsible AI? What do you think are some of the most consequential developments right now? Or what are you seeing in academia, in the academic circles that you are in? Or what are you finding as, you're going around the world speaking to so many people? What issues are you hearing about from other panelists? Or what questions are you getting from audiences? Just what's top of mind for you this month in responsible AI?
Fantastic. I think for me, the more you engage, the more you speak, the more people who ask you questions, you realize that people still don't know. We still need to put that information out there. Oftentimes we're going to these conferences, we're on these panels, and we're with our peers. And it's himself talking to himself, or herself talking to herself, or themselves talking to themselves, right? We've got to understand there's so many people who are still not engaged around responsible AI conversations. We need to think about so many people who are still digitally invisible and who've not engaged with the technology. So although we're having the conversation, we may be creating our own echo chambers. And that's something that we have got to be very careful about. There are still so many people who need to understand the implications of this technology. And as we continue to get excited about AI and, of course, our generative AI and things that new things that are on the horizon, let's always remember that we are committed to really ensuring the broadest stakeholder engagement. Because if we're not doing that, for me, I will say the most exciting thing happened to me recently. I was speaking at an international physics conference, and after I delivered my responsible AI keynote, one of the restaurant staffers came out to me and he said, "Wow, that really blew my mind. I didn't know all of those things were happening with technology or with my phone." And when just everyday people come up to me and say, I've never heard this. And thank you for that. I'm going to share this at home, or I'm going to have a conversation at the kitchen table. Those are the things that really inspire me. And really, we've got to continue to do this work, and we've got to ensure that we keep widening the net when it comes to stakeholder engagement, and understand that public engagement is really beyond. You just can't get tired. We've got to continue to just have these conversations.
That is a really wonderful note to end things on. Renée, thank you so much for joining today and having this conversation. And thanks to our audience. Thanks for tuning in. And you can find a replay of this as well as all of our live streams on our YouTube channel, All Tech is Human. And please find all of the information about us at alltechishuman.org. And check out Renée's pages as well. You can find her on LinkedIn. And where else are you, Renée?
UVA website, you can find me there, School of Data Science, and of course Brookings, and just on LinkedIn if you want to have any further conversation. Thank you so very much, and looking forward to our next month in responsible AI.
Me too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.